in the...
what was it? Brunswick?
Well, yeah,
Square.
Brunswick Square. Russell
Oh.
Square was...
Italy.
Russell Square was too busy. I don't know how to get there good.
Alright, anyway.
So just leave it away.
Canto Hare Krishna Rama.
Okay, so...
Canto 3. Text. Chapter 1, text 1. Okay?
Yes, so we're starting third canto today.
Yeah.
Amazing. Auspicious
New
day.
book.
Yeah. New book. So, yeah, we just recite the invocation. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Right. Text 1. So Guru Goswami said, after renouncing his prosperous home and entering the forest, King Vidura, the
You
great...
have to speak louder, I think.
I didn't realize Vidura was a king. I thought he was just an advisor. Gosh.
Well, I mean, he's the brother, the half-brother
Brother
of the king.
No, he didn't. Alright, King Vidura, the great devotee, asked this question of His Grace Maitreya Rishi. Text 2. What else is there to say about the residential house of the Pandavas? Sri Krishna, the Lord of everything, acted as your minister. He used to enter that house as if it were his own, and he did not take any care of Duryodhana's house. Oh, who's speaking here now?
Shukadeva Goswami.
Yeah, but Shukadeva Goswami is speaking, and he's asking, Vidura is speaking, asking this question of Maitreya Rishi.
After announcing his precious home in the forest, King Vidura the Great asked this question of Maitreya Rishi. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't
So
make
Vidura is speaking to Maitreya Rishi, and he's saying, what else is there to say about the residential house of the Pandavas? Shri Krishna, the Lord of everything, acted as your minister.
Yeah, but acted as who? Maitreya Rishi's minister. See them. I would have thought it was Maitreya Rishi asking Vidura that.
Yeah, he's another.
But it's questions by Vidura. Unless I missed something. Maitreya Rishi was in that palace, I guess.
Oh, no, he wasn't.
Maybe it will come up as we're reading.
Yeah.
But I just, yeah. Okay, purport. According to the Gaudiya Achintya Veda Veda Tattva philosophy, anything which satisfies the senses of the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna is also Sri Krishna. For example, Sri Vrindavan Dham is non-different from Sri Krishna, Tad Dharma Vrindavanam, because at Vrindavan the Lord enjoys the transcendental bliss of his internal potency. Similarly, the house of the Pandavas is also the source of transcendental bliss for the Lord. It is mentioned here that the Lord identified the house with his own self. Thus, the house of the Pandavas was as good as Vrindavan, and Vidura should not have given up that place of transcendental bliss. Therefore, the reason for his quitting the house was not exactly family misunderstanding. Rather, Vidura took the opportunity to meet Rishi Maitreya and discuss transcendental knowledge. For a saintly person like Vidura, any disturbance due to worldly affairs is insignificant. Such disturbances, however, are sometimes favorable for higher realization, and therefore Vidura took advantage of a family misunderstanding in order to meet Maitreya Rishi.
Yeah, so devotee always sees Krishna's hand and is always able to make the best of a bad bargain.
Yeah, and use it as an opportunity to surrender more and take shelter.
Yeah. And to get the association of holy personalities.
Yeah.
Interesting, though, that point that you made, yeah. Okay. I think this is still Shukadeva Goswami speaking to King Parikshit and saying, what else is there to say about the residential house of the Pandavas? Shri Krishna, Lord of everything, acted as your minister.
Yeah, actually that's answered in the next verse.
He used to enter the house as if it were his own. He did not. So I think it's Shukadeva speaking to Parikshit.
Yeah, it says in the next third verse.
Yeah. And the king asked Shukadeva Goswami, where and when did the meeting and discussion take place between Saint Vidura and His Grace Maitreya Muni? Kindly oblige, my lord, and describe this to us.
So it's still them, still Sukadeva and Parikshit speaking.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Purport. Exactly as Shaunaka Rishi inquired of Sutta Goswami, and Sutta Goswami replied, so Srila Shukadeva Goswami replied to King Parikshit's inquiries. The king was very anxious to understand the meaningful discussion that took place between the two great souls. So remember, at the end of the second canto, what happened was that Shaunaka Rishi was inquiring from Sutta Goswami on behalf of the sage Naimisharanya, who were like, okay, enough of all this, can we hear some pastime? Tell us about Vidura and Maitreya. Right. And then Shukadeva Goswami opens this canto by saying, basically, actually, Sutta Goswami replies by narrating the continued conversation between Shukadeva and Maharaj Parikshit. So just to keep up with it, it's like, wow.
Yeah, it'd be good to draw a big diagram and have it all.
There is, Mother Narayani did one for it. I used to have it.
Is it in the back of that book you got?
Yeah, something. But I don't have the one for the whole. It was called Srimad Bhagavatam at a Glance.
Yeah. It's good. It helps you to.
But now I've only got Srimad Bhagavatam Part 1.
Anyway,
let's read on. Okay.
Text 4. Saint Vidura was a great and pure devotee of the Lord, and therefore his questions to His Grace Rishi Maitreya must have been very purposeful on the highest level and approved by learned circles. Questions and answers among different classes of men have different value. Inquiries by mercantile men in a business exchange cannot be expected to be highly purposeful in spiritual values. Questions and answers by different classes of men can be guessed by the caliber of the persons concerned. In Bhagavad Gita, the discussion was between Lord Sri Krishna and Arjuna, the Supreme Person and the Supreme Devotee respectively. The Lord admitted Arjuna to be his devotee and friend, Bhagavad Gita 4.3, and therefore any sane man can guess that the discussion was on the topic of the Bhakti Yoga system. Actually, the whole Bhagavad Gita is based on the principle of Bhakti Yoga. There is a difference between karma and karma yoga. Karma is regulated action for the enjoyment of the fruit by the performer, but karma yoga is action performed by the devotee for the satisfaction of the Lord. Karma yoga is based on bhakti or pleasing the Lord, whereas karma is based on pleasing the senses of the performer himself. According to Srimad Bhagavatam, one is advised to approach a bona fide spiritual master when one is actually inclined to a question from an elevated level of spiritual understanding. A common man who has no interest in spiritual values has no need to approach a spiritual master, just as a matter of following fashion.
As a student, Maharaj Parikshit was serious about learning the science of God, and Shukadeva Goswami was a bona fide spiritual master in the transcendental science. Both of them knew that the topics discussed by Vidura and Rishi Maitreya were elevated, and thus Maharaj Parikshit was very interested in learning from the bona fide spiritual master.
Text 5. Sri Sutta Goswami said, the great sage Sukadeva Goswami was highly experienced and was pleased with the king. Thus being questioned by the king, he said to him, please hear the topics attentively. Text 6. Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, King Dhritarashtra became blind under the influence of impious desires to nourish his dishonest sons. And thus he set fire to the lacquer house to burn his fatherless nephews, the Pandavas. Dhritarashtra was blind from birth, but his blindness in committing impious activities to support his dishonest sons was a greater blindness than his physical lack of eyesight. The physical lack of sight does not bar one from spiritual progress. But when one is blind spiritually, even though physically fit, that blindness is dangerously detrimental to the progressive path of human life. Very powerful, no?
Yeah, there are no material obstacles.
Yeah, no impediments. So true.
But if one is spiritually blind or spiritually incapable, then what can be done?
Yeah.
Like Prabhupada used to say, it's impossible to wake.
Yeah, I was going to say.
What is it?
To wake someone up who's pretending to be asleep.
Yeah, to wake a person who's pretending to be asleep.
Yeah.
But, to wake a sleeping person is not that problem. They just need to hear.
Yeah.
But one who's pretending to be asleep, they're not really able to hear exactly. So, interesting. Text 7. The king did not forbid his son Dushasana's abominable action of grabbing the hair of Draupadi, the wife of the godly King Yudhisthira, even though her tears washed the red dust on her breasts. Text 8. Yudhisthira, who was born without any enemy, was unfairly defeated in gambling, but because he had taken the vow of truthfulness, he went off to the forest. When he came back in due course and begged the return of his rightful share of the kingdom, he was refused by Dhritarashtra, who was overwhelmed by illusions. Purport. Maharaj Yudhisthira was the rightful heir to his father's kingdom, but just to favor his own sons, headed by Duryodhana, Dhritarashtra, Maharaj Yudhisthira's uncle, adopted various unfair means to cheat his nephews of their rightful share of the kingdom. At last, the Pandavas demanded only 5 villages, one for each of the 5 brothers, but that was also refused by the usurpers. This incident led to the war of Kurukshetra. The battle of Kurukshetra, therefore, was induced by the Kurus and not the Pandavas.
As Kshatriyas, the proper livelihood of the Pandavas was only to rule and not to accept any other occupation. A Brahmana, Kshatriya or Vaishya will not accept employment for his livelihood under any circumstances.
That's an interesting statement as well. Of course, that was then, this is now. I mean, can we really say that the Brahmanas, the Kshatriyas, and the Vaishyas shouldn't take employment from someone else, or that they would be considered lower than, or Shudras? Time, place, and circumstance, I guess.
But they were looked after in a certain way as well.
Well, no, that statement means, at least what I'm understanding, is that statement means that basically they were self-sufficient. They didn't need to work for anyone else. So the Kshatriyas were, of course, not every Kshatriya was a military person who had his own kingdom. He may have just been military men who fought, so they were under someone. And Vaishyas, it's not. Is it that every Vaishya had his own business? So anyway, it's an interesting statement, but the point is, in the modern day, it's not really so practical or possible. Even if someone has Kshatriya nature or Vaishya nature, the likelihood is they're going to have to work for someone else, at least, temporarily or initially. But the main point I wanted to make was that reading this, reminding me about how King Yudhisthira accepted his what is it called? Accepted being sent to the forest for what they went for 14 years, wasn't it? 12 years. 12 years. Yeah, Lord Ram was 14. But I was thinking how Lord Ram also, he went to the forest, and he didn't have to. He could have refuted it. It was all like a big, misunderstanding and crooked sort of setup. But he accepted that my father asked me to go, so therefore I'm going to go. And here we have King Yudhisthira, who, even though he was cheated, and they must have known they were cheated, they, instead of arguing and fighting, they just accepted the punishment. And they went away for 12 years. And then they came back and asked for just 5 little villages, even though the entire kingdom was rightfully theirs. So it just goes to show that sometimes we just have to accept things the way that they are, and maybe that's the right way to do things. Unfortunately, the propensity and tendency is to fight and defend. Any thoughts?
Yeah, it's true. Requires a lot of faith.
Yeah, that's for sure. Okay, text number 9. Lord Krishna was sent by Arjuna into the assembly as the spiritual master of the whole world, and although his words were heard by some like Bhishma as pure nectar, it was not so for the others, who were completely bereft of the last farthing of past pious works. The king, Dhritarashtra or Duryodhana, did not take the words of Lord Krishna very seriously. There you go. Purport. Lord Krishna, who is the spiritual master of the entire universe, accepted the duty of a messenger and, deputed by Arjuna, went to the assembly of King Dhritarashtra on a peace mission. Krishna is everyone's Lord, yet because he was the transcendental friend of Arjuna, he gladly accepted the role of messenger, exactly like an ordinary friend. That is the beauty of the Lord's behavior with his pure devotees. He reached the assembly and spoke about peace, and the message was relished by Bhishma and other great leaders because it was spoken by the Lord himself. But due to the exhaustion of the pious results of their past deeds, Duryodhana or his father Dhritarashtra did not take the message very seriously. That is the way of persons who have no credit of pious deeds. By past pious deeds, one may become the king of a country. But because the results of the pious acts of Duryodhana and company were dwindling, it became evident that from their actions, that they were sure to lose the kingdom to the Pandavas. The message of Godhead is always like nectar to the devotees, but it is just the opposite to the non-devotees. Sugar candy is always sweet to a healthy man, but it tastes very bitter to persons suffering from jaundice.
Text 10. When Vidura was invited by his elder brother Dhritarashtra for consultation, he entered the house and gave instructions which were exactly to the point. His advice is well known, and instructions by Vidura are approved by expert ministers of state. Political suggestions by Vidura are known as expert, just as in modern times Pandit Chanakya is considered the authority in good counsel in both political and moral instructions.
Yeah, so basically he's going to blast him.
Yeah.
He's going to let him know that, anyway, we'll hear.
Yeah, don't spoil it.
Vidura said, You must now return the legitimate share to Yudhisthira, who has no enemies and who has been forbearing through untold sufferings due to your offenses. He is waiting with his younger brothers, among whom is the revengeful Bhima, breathing heavily like a snake. Surely you are afraid of him. Text 12. Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead, has accepted the sons of Pritha as his kinsmen, and all the kings of the world are with Lord Sri Krishna. He is present in his home with all his family members, the kings and the princes of the Yadu dynasty, who have conquered an unlimited number of rulers, and he is their Lord. Purport. Vidura gave Dhritarashtra very good counsel regarding political alliance with the sons of Prithu, the Pandavas. The first thing he said was that Lord Krishna was intimately related with them as their cousin, because Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is worshipable by all brahmanas and demigods, who are the controllers of the universal affairs. Besides that, Lord Krishna and his family members, the royal order of the Yadu dynasty, were the conquerors of all kings of the world.
The Kshatriyas used to fight the kings of various dominions and kidnap their beautiful princess daughters after conquering their relatives. This system was laudable because the Kshatriyas and the princesses would be married only on the basis of the chivalry of the conquering Kshatriya. All the young princes of the Yadu dynasty married the daughters of other kings in this way, by chivalrous force. And thus they were conquerors of all the kings of the world. Sounds terrible.
What?
Well, I don't want to be. What say do I get in that if I was a princess? I don't want to be fought over like that. Doesn't mean the person who wins is the best person, does it?
Yeah, but to be honest, ladies didn't get much say.
I know, that sounds terrible. Vidura wanted to impress upon his elder brother that fighting with the Pandavas was fraught with many dangers because they were supported by Lord Krishna, who had conquered, even in his childhood, demons like Kamsa and Jarasan and demigods like Brahma and Indra. Therefore, all universal power was behind the Pandavas.
Text 13. You are maintaining a fence personified. Duryodhana is your infallible son. But he is envious of Lord Krishna, and because you are thus maintaining a non-devotee of Krishna, you are devoid of all auspicious qualities. Relieve yourself of this ill fortune as soon as possible, and do good to the whole family. So, purport. Basically, Vidura is really giving it to Dhritarashtra. A good son is called apatya, one who does not allow his father to fall down. The son can protect his father's soul when the father is dead by offering sacrifices to please the Supreme Lord Vishnu. This system is still prevalent in India. After the death of his father, a son goes to offer sacrifices at the lotus feet of Vishnu at Gaya, and thus delivers the father's soul if the father is fallen. But if the son is already an enemy of Vishnu, how, in such an inimical mood, can he offer sacrifice unto Lord Vishnu's lotus feet? Lord Krishna is directly the personality of Godhead, Vishnu, and Duryodhana was inimical to him. He would therefore be able to protect his father.
He would therefore be unable.
He would therefore be unable to protect his father and Dhritarashtra after his death. He himself was to fall down because of his faithlessness towards Vishnu. How then could he protect his father? Vidura advised Dhritarashtra to get rid of such an unworthy son as Duryodhana as soon as possible if he was at all anxious to see the good of his family.
According to the moral instructions of Chanakya Pandit, what is the use of a son who is neither a learned man nor a devotee of the Lord? If a son is not a devotee of the Supreme Lord, he is just like blind eyes, a source of trouble. A physician may sometimes advise the extrication of such useless eyes from their sockets so that one can be relieved of the constant trouble. Duryodhana was exactly like blind, troubling eyes who would be a source of great trouble to the family of Dhritarashtra, as foreseen by Vidura. Vidura therefore rightly advised his eldest brother to get rid of this source of trouble. Dhritarashtra was wrongly maintaining such personified offence under the mistaken impression that Duryodhana was a good son, able to liberate his father.
Yeah, we become blinded.
Yes.
By
Yes.
Dhritarashtra was already blind, but he also, and spiritually blind, but he also just became in general blind, unable to see really exactly, what the nature was, because blood is thicker than water, so.
Yes. Yeah, and if you read the Mahabharata, he was actually bitter because, correct me if I'm wrong, he is the elder brother.
Yeah.
And he was not on the throne because of his blindness.
Yeah.
And that's why Pandu was on the throne. And so he is bitter about that, which is due to, if you want to, the karma, this and that. So, that's his own thing. But so, yeah, it made him critical and bitter, because life threw a curveball at him, as it were.
Yeah.
Because it should have all been his and Duryodhan's rightfully.
Yeah, in one sense that's true, but somehow circumstances dictated that it wasn't.
Yeah. Well, then the person he has to blame, if you read Mahabharata, actually, if you go, is his mum. Because when Vyasadeva came to father the kids,
She closed her eyes.
she closed her eyes in fear. And yeah.
Yes, let's
If you
blame
wanna get
somebody.
into it.
Blame whoever you like, but you have to take responsibility
They all
somewhere.
can't. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll conclude here.
All right.
Thank you all very much. And just a reminder, Gorpanim coming up soon. So if you want to sit at Chaitanya Charitamritas, please let us know. And join in for the festival on the 28th. Online. Well, temple will be open for darshan also. You can come in the evening, look at the schedule on the website.
Yeah.
And also, please don't forget, we have the Mahasankirtan Yagya, Mahajapa Yagya, coming up this Saturday. So join in, chant extra rounds. I'm pledging to try to chant 125 rounds.
Yeah.
With pleasure of Srila Prabhupada. So not sure how that's going to work out. I think it's about 10 to 12 hours of chanting.
Sure.
So it's going to be a long day of nectar. All right, see y'all later. Hare Krishna.